Well, carbon footprints and energy. I'm Mukti Mitchell from Carbon Savvy. And to kick off, I'm going to talk about the UK carbon footprint and our carbon footprints. And essentially, it's a starting point as we're homing in towards renewable energy, which is part of our solution, just putting it in context with the whole footprint. And so a typical UK carbon footprint is 15 tons of CO2 per person per year. And that includes the international manufacturing, aviation and shipping. And it's in 5 main lifestyle areas, which will vary according to the individual. But in very simplistic terms, to grasp the concept of the 5 biggest areas of emissions, you can see in this pie chart here, we could imagine it in an imaginary typical lifestyle, there'd be roughly equal 5 areas of 3 tons each, which is heating our homes, transporting ourselves around, food production, distribution, refrigeration, cooking, etc., holidays, and the products that we buy. And the biggest actions that we can therefore take to save CO2 are in these areas. So insulate our homes is the biggest thing we can do for homes. Sharing transport, that's sharing a lift with another colleague if you have a particularly regular commute. Driving every other day, perhaps taking it in terms of course sharing transport in the sense of public transport. Also walking or cycling as part of a hybrid journey that gets you to a transport link. So each of these 5 actions can reduce your carbon footprint by 80% in that area. So eat local, seasonal, organic food. That can reduce your carbon footprint by 80%, or in fact more. Food is the one thing that can actually have sequestration, which is a negative carbon footprint, i.e. is absorbing CO2. Holidaying by ground level transport. If we go across Europe, for example, by train or ferry, particularly the train can easily save your emissions by 80% when compared to flights. And purchasing high quality, long lasting products can reduce the carbon emissions from shopping by 80%. Because if you have, for example, a toaster that lasts 20 years, like my Dualit toaster that I'm so proud of, my mum and dad gave me for Christmas 20 years ago. I think that one toaster will last for the rest of my life because you can replace the elements and things. So obviously that's replacing buying 5 toasters in the same time period, which is why it has 1/5 of the carbon footprint. But if you actually take into account the reduction in shopping journeys, etc., it's a compound of that. So that's a wonderful way we as individuals can influence manufacturing. So these can reduce emissions by 80% in each lifestyle area. I want to touch on a very important theme of my work and the work of Carbon Savvy is really drawing attention to how saving CO2 raises quality of life. I've been reducing my own carbon footprint for 25 years. It's about 1/3 of the national average. And almost every step I've taken to reduce my carbon footprint has improved my quality of life. And you probably get a sense in my talk, but I get super enthusiastic about talking about it because we all love sharing good tips. Found a good deal, found a good holiday, found something. We love talking about things that we found. And I discovered that really reducing your carbon footprint, like having high quality, long lasting products, means your home is full of the best products. I've got the best electric drill that any carpenter's had on site for the last 34 years that I've had my Metabo electric drill. So there's a little example. So thinking about quality of life for a second and putting the environment to one side just for 1 minute, we're saying, what kind of home would I like to have the best quality of life? Well, I'd like a warm home that's low cost and feels good. Well, if I insulate my home, it'll be warm, low cost and feel good and reduce the carbon footprint by 80%. And what kind of transport would give me the best quality of life? I'd like to be chauffeur driven like the millionaires and billionaires. Well, if I share a lift every other day to work with a friend, every other day I'm chauffeur driven and I can chat. If I go by public transport, train or bus, I'm chauffeur driven. I can relax, I can read, I can have a nap, I can chat to my neighbor, arrive more refreshed. And shared transport is a reduction of your carbon footprint by 80%. Food, what kind of food would I want to have the best quality of life? I would like the most delicious, the most nutritious, and the most low in toxins. And that's seasonal, local, organic food, which again reduces your footprint by 80%. And I've found that the best holidays I've had in my life have really been the ones that promoted an inner journey, which is much more profound when you're going across a landscape on a train like the TGV from Paris to Barcelona. I've taken many times, and you see the snow-capped Alps and the Pyrenees and the pink flamingos in the south of France, etc. And so it promotes more of an inner journey and reduces your footprint. And also what kind of products. I would like the most beautiful, the most user-friendly, and the longest lasting products so that they don't break down, which is always frustrating when a product breaks down. And of course, that reduces your carbon footprint. So I hope that gives you a taste of how it keys into improving our quality of life. And I believe life in 2050 we'll all be happier and healthier and fitter and more connected to our communities than we are today. So what's the role of renewables in this? Well, in parallel with reducing our energy use in each of these 5 main lifestyle areas by 80%, which is an important first step, then renewable energy needs to be expanded to meet the remaining 20% of our energy needs. Electricity is currently around 1/5 of our total energy use, and renewables represent less than 1/5 of our electricity consumption. In fact, I think it is around 1/5. In fact, it may have exceeded that a little bit in the last year. But you can see that we need to expand renewables by 500% or expand them 5 times to meet the electricity requirement. And we still need to reduce our emissions by 80% to or reduce our energy use by 80% to come down to that level. And we don't want Britain to be plastered, although I love windmills, from one end to the other. We want still our areas of outstanding natural beauty, etc. And there's no point in wasting energy. So, but once we've done that reduction, which is so important, then in almost every one of those areas, heating our homes can be done electrically through heat pumps, transportation through electric cars, electric buses, etc. Food production using somewhat electricity, but other more important methods. And holidays, if the transport is by electric powered transport, and manufacturing. So you can see how producing renewables or expanding renewables keys into all of these lifestyle areas. So an example of reductions first is in the area of insulation, which is my other hat. I also have been involved in insulating period homes for the last 12 years. So just is a good example that if you take an old home and you increase the loft insulation by from 100 to 300 mil, put really good draft proofing, fit double, triple or secondary glazing, fit wall insulation, internal or external wall insulation, and put underfloor insulation, the total effect, even in the hard to treat listed period end of properties, can reduce heat loss by 80%. And in the more modern buildings, 1950s, 1960s, etc., you can definitely achieve that. So firstly, reducing your emissions, and then meeting the remaining requirement with heat pumps, which are going to probably be the predominant form of heating in 95% of British homes by 2050. But heat pumps only really work in a well-insulated home. So it's just an example of bringing first the energy saving and the renewables together. So renewable energy solutions, just touching very briefly on the energy sources. Of course, we've got wind, we've got solar, and we've got hydropower, and that's in the form of a river hydro, but also tidal, etc. Then we've got batteries, very, very important. They're not a source of energy, but they're very important. They almost work like a source of energy, because if the wind's blowing all through the night and nobody's using electricity, and we charge up the batteries in our home, we can then use it when the wind's not there on a dull, not sunny day. So batteries are a really important part of the mix. Important to know that hydrogen is not a fuel source. There is no big resources of hydrogen in the world. Hydrogen is a gas that is made by splitting water. H2O is water, you split them and you get hydrogen and oxygen. And then when you burn hydrogen, and it can be burnt just like gas. So what's attractive is you can split water using electricity, feed it through the gas grid to our homes and run our homes, because hydrogen burns very much like natural gas on the same boilers, etc. But it's not a source of energy, and you still need the energy to split the hydrogen in the first place. So it's not that helpful. Could be a bridging technology. And biomass, really important to understand. that biomass is has very high emissions at point of use. Burning wood chip, wood pellets sometimes has much higher emissions than even burning fossil fuels. So it's seen as a bridging technology by the government. It's not truly low carbon. And I've just got to 10 minutes, so I'm going to round up. Heating systems, heat pumps are the most efficient, but heat networks and district heating are important. And remember, the keys are clean energy. So biomass is not clean, it's not burning clean. Clean energy is completely free of pollution, and negawatts, where we have just saving wattage by not using the energy in the first place. You can get your carbon footprint if you want to at carbonsavvy.uk. It's a brilliant starting point for all of our lifestyles. We'll share these slides so that you can have this, but we do courses and footprints, and you can contact me and visit the website. And if you want to come on our Carbon Ambassadors course, that's starting on the 6th of May for 8 weeks. You'd be very, very welcome. And we've got some brilliant speakers, including people like Mike Berners-Lee, the author of How Bad Are Bananas? Thank you very much for inviting me to speak here.